Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a horror film, Joyride Part 1. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins at the University of California, where a college student named Lewis is busy chattering on the telephone with his childhood friend, Vena. Vena mentions her recent breakup and wishes to visit her hometown to decompress from time to time. Lewis obviously has a crush on Vena, so he offers her a free ride back to their hometown. The next day, Lewis refunds his plane ticket to buy a second-hand Chrysler. Afterward, he hit the road on the way to Colorado. He stops over first in a convenience store to update his mother about his detour to Colorado to fetch Vena before he goes home, but his mother is mentally occupied. His mother admits that she worries about his alienated older brother, Fuller, who's been arrested again and is charged with being drunk and disorderly at Salt Lake City. Lewis then goes back on the road, but he's compelled to bail out his brother because he misses him. Thus, he takes a U-turn to take the route passing through Salt Lake City. However, a police officer signals Lewis to pull over. The officer writes him a ticket due to the illegal U-turn earlier and damaged taillight. Lewis eventually arrives in Salt Lake City to bail Fuller out of jail. Afterward, Fuller wants to join him on his trip back to their hometown, but Lewis stops in a gas station to tell Vena about his detour to the jail, making his trip to Colorado a bit delayed, although he promises Vena that he's going to meet her on time by tomorrow. Meanwhile, Fuller buys a CB radio and has it installed by a mechanic on Lewis's car. Back on the road, Fuller decides to prank someone on the radio. He asks Lewis to imitate a woman's voice with the name Candy Cane. Lewis is reluctant to try at first, but he soon enjoys the prank and cooperates. Their little prank successfully fools a trucker named Rusty Nail, but their game ends midway after the radio loses signal. At night, the brothers go to a motel for a night's rest. While Lewis waits in the car, Fuller enters the lobby, only to witness a businessman shouting racist insults at the hotel manager. When Fuller tries to intervene and book a room, the businessman yells at him also before returning to his room. Meanwhile, Lewis hears Rusty Nail on the radio calling for Candy Cane. Just then, Fuller enters the car to vent about the businessman being racist, but Lewis cuts him off to tell him that Rusty Nail is back. Fuller then uses Rusty Nail as a tool in his revenge scheme on the businessman. Therefore, they lure Rusty Nail to their location and ask him to bring pink champagne for Candy Cane in room 17. Rusty Nail expects a date with Candy Cane at midnight, but that room is actually rented by the businessman. Afterward, the brothers are in room 18, chilling comfortably until Lewis hears a noise outside the raging storm. They turn off the lights and television, anticipating the result of their prank in room 17. While they listen through the wall, hearing the fuming businessman being disturbed by Rusty Nail, Fuller quietly chuckles on his side. However, they fall silent upon hearing the shouting fade and get replaced by a gasping sound. Fuller assumes the noise originates from Rusty Nail being strangled to death by the businessmen. But Lewis feels uneasy, so he calls the manager to check on the businessman. But the manager calls to relay to Lewis that the businessman is doing great in his room. The following day, the cops secure the motel due to last night's crime. According to the police, the businessman is found fighting for his life on the highway, with his jaw ripped off completely. The officer asks Fuller and Lewis if they witnessed or heard something last night, and the brothers inform him that they called the manager about the disturbance. The brothers are surprised to learn the victim is the businessman, rather than Rusty Nail. The officer brings them to the hospital to show the businessman is in a coma due to the gruesome assault. Lewis admits to the sheriff that they're responsible and guilty of why a trucker nicknamed Rusty Nail went to the motel and proceeded to hurt the businessman in room 17. The sheriff is mad at them for committing pranks that led to someone getting hurt. He then asks them to leave the place instantly because they've done more trouble and paperwork for him. At sundown, the brothers continue their road trip, but are still fazed by what happened. At night, Rusty Nail searches for Candy Cane on the radio again. Lewis wakes Fuller up from his sleep to stop the prank, but Fuller still stubbornly plays along anyway. Lewis then steals the mic from Fuller to confess there's no Candy Cane because they're only pranking him. Rusty Nail goes quiet for a moment, but he demands an apology. Unfortunately, Fuller refuses to apologize and even has the audacity to insult him and his bad hormones. Rusty Nail unexpectedly mentions repairing the taillight, which induces the brothers to realize that they're being followed by Rusty Nail. Fuller looks back, only to see more cars and trucks behind them. Lewis then glances at the dashboard and sees the fuel is nearly empty. Fuller enters panic mode, but Lewis reassures them they can stop by at a gas station. However, their hope shatters again upon seeing the sign stating they're still miles away from a nearby city. Lewis then asks Fuller to check their map to search for any gas station nearby. Luckily, they find one after swerving the car to the right road. While Fuller fills the car with gas, Lewis calls the sheriff on the store's telephone. However, the station tells Lewis that the sheriff isn't around at the moment. Meanwhile, Fuller freezes as he watches the ice trucker exit his truck with a baseball bat. Fuller then signals Lewis to come out because the ice trucker that they assume is Rusty Nail is inside the store with him. Lewis then pays for the gas using his card, but because of immense fear creeping in his body, he leaves the store, enters the car, and drives away, which he nearly crashes into a Peterbilt truck. The ice trucker quickly pursues the brothers, who are heading straight to a dead-end road. Lewis abruptly pulls over in front of a closed gate. The ice trucker then exits his truck, just so he can return Lewis his card that he forgot to retrieve from the cashier earlier. The brothers are somewhat relieved because they're alive and not murdered. Afterward, the brothers stand outside the car to compose themselves as they watch the ice trucker leave. Suddenly, the Peterbilt truck pierces through the ice truck, prompting the brothers to escape, panicking muscles away. The Peterbilt truck pursues them, but Lewis accidentally slams into a tree, causing the car to get stuck. The Peterbilt truck is driven by Rusty Nail himself, and he gradually squeezes their car to the tree trunk, which forces Fuller to apologize and admit the hormone prank is done out of entertainment. Rusty Nail laughs at them, claiming the chase is also a game, like their prank on him. The truck slowly backs away and leaves them alone. The next day, the brothers return to the mechanic shop to have everything fixed in the car. Lewis then calls Vena to tell her that they're going to be late again due to yesterday's unfortunate event. The brothers continue their trip. Fuller dumps the radio on the road. Afterward, the brothers reach Colorado to fetch Vena. Before they officially leave, Vena introduces her friend to everyone. Soon, the three of them travel and reach Nebraska, but Vena is the driver this time. Then at night, they book 2 separate rooms and later on enjoy liquor in a bar. Afterward, Lewis proceeds to sleep, whereas Fuller continues drinking with Vena in her room. However, Lewis's slumber is disturbed by a phone ring. When he answers the telephone, he hears Rusty Nail questioning him about having no girl in the car. Lewis attempts to dissuade Rusty Nail of what he saw, but then Rusty Nail asks what she's doing with Fuller in the other room. Lewis ends the call and bolts to Vena's room to relay the bad news that Rusty Nail is still onto them. The three then run to the car to escape the sight of their pursuer. While Lewis explains their unfortunate circumstance to Vena, Fuller reads the painted instructions on the road signs, asking them to look in the trunk. Fuller then pulls over on the side road so they can check the trunk. Vena is curious to know what's inside, so she opens the deck lid herself, only to find the radio that Fuller trashed earlier. They're compelled to install the radio back to the car, but they're only going to listen and report what they hear from Rusty Nail back to the sheriff. However, they go against their plan upon hearing the friends cry on the radio. Rusty Nails threatens to hurt their friend if they report him to the police, which forces the brothers to comply with his direction to meet at the state line truck stop tomorrow. Otherwise, they wouldn't see their friend alive again. The next day, the three friends receive another dare from Rusty Nail. The brothers need to eat burgers in a fast food chain while stripped from clothes. The brothers commit to the dare. Rusty Nail tells Vena that the brothers need to learn a hard lesson to make them understand what he felt when they made a fool out of him in the motel. At night, Rusty Nail dares them to drive to a cornfield. Afterward, Rusty Nail asks them to walk 100 steps away from the car. Fuller resists obeying at first, but Vena reminds them of her friend's safety, so they're obligated to follow if they want her alive. When they finally walk 100 steps, a truck revs behind and starts to drive straight towards them. The three friends run to the cornfield to blend among the corn plants, but Rusty Nail still manages to locate them due to his blinding truck lights. While Rusty Nail carelessly drives around the field, chasing after them, the three friends are forced to split up. Rusty Nail suddenly idles the truck, whereas the three cower in the field, quietly whispering each other's name as they relocate one another. Regrettably, Rusty Nail captures Vena, who happens to be close to his truck. Lewis and Fuller have to watch the truck leave the field. They are somewhat relieved when they reunite, but anger subsequently replaces their relief upon realizing that Vena is taken by Rusty Nail. Just then, they see their car burning and producing towering smoke across the field. The brothers race to the car, where they'd find the pink champagne on the seat and hear Vena's plea on the radio. Out of desperation, Lewis willingly succumbs to Rusty Nail's game just so Vena can be safe. Rusty Nail enjoys terrorizing the brothers, so he dares them to recreate the motel incident once again, but they're delivering the pink champagne this time at midnight in a motel in Medford. While Lewis bargains with Rusty Nail, Fuller notices the gas leakage underneath. He then pulls Lewis away from the car on time, just before the car explodes in front of them. Since the brothers have their car destroyed, they steal one in a nearby bar. The brothers travel to Medford swiftly, and Fuller convinces themselves that they're going to save everyone and bring them to safety. When the brothers reach Medford, they're baffled by the number of motels around them because Rusty Nail never mentioned which room 17 of a motel he's pertaining to. While the brothers knock on each room 17 of all motels, Rusty Nail binds Vena to a chair nailed to the floor. Then he assembles a trap where he ties the doorknob to the trigger of the shotgun that's pointing at Vena. When the brothers even attempt to turn the doorknob, the trigger fires, which would kill Vena instantly. When the trap is complete, Rusty Nail alerts the cops via telephone about the dead bodies in their motel because he's confident that blood would rain in the aftermath of his game. The brothers end up in the last motel in Medford, but when they finally enter room 17, they find the place empty. The telephone abruptly rings and Lewis answers the call. Rusty Nail only wants them to feel the same disappointment that he felt during their prank on him. Luckily, Lewis wittily determines that Vena is in the neighboring room 18. Fuller then heads to the back to search for Vena in the window. However, Rusty Nail catches him and grabs him tight. He then headlocks Fuller, covering his mouth to prevent him from warning Lewis, who's about to enter room 18. Fortunately, Fuller manages to escape from Rusty Nail's grasp and warns Lewis not to open the door. However, even though Fuller is free from Rusty Nail, he crashes on the fence and falls onto a metal, penetrating his thigh. Afterward, Rusty Nail stomps Fuller's thigh to sink the metal deeper to inflict more pain. Fuller's agonizing scream summons Lewis to run at the back to save him. Just then, Lewis watches the Rusty Nail's truck leave and then finds Fuller hanging by the shirt on the fence. He attempts to bring him down, but Fuller's thigh is impaled on a pipe. Meanwhile, cops arrive in the motel, enclosing the crime scene completely. The cops discover the manager dead in the office, urging them to search for more survivors and victims. While the cops search every room, Vena liberates herself from bondage alone, whereas Lewis carefully removes Fuller from the fence. When Fuller is finally sitting on the floor, he hears the cops are about to open room 18. He urges Lewis to warn the cops about room 18 to rescue Vena from inevitable death. Lewis arrives on time to move Vena from the gunpoint, right before the cops barge into the room. The cops suspect Lewis is the culprit. Knowing that the police are not going to listen to his side, he draws them to the back of the motel. Meanwhile, Fuller shouts for help as Rusty Nail drives the truck towards him. Lewis emerges from the fence while being followed by the cops and then removes Fuller from the impalement. The cops then divert their attention to the running truck and gun down Rusty Nail on his seat. Fortunately, Lewis and Fuller manage to get out of the way before the truck crashes straight into room 18. The cops examine the truck, where they find Rusty Nail dead on his seat and the friend alive at the back. The movie ends with the four of them sitting in the ambulance, completely secured within the authorities' presence. However, they soon learn the person whom they fought earlier is not Rusty Nail, but the ice trucker who was kind enough to return Lewis's card. Right then, they hear Rusty Nail is back on the radio, which means he's still alive somewhere, lurking and waiting to attack once again. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.